So today I just wanted to take a quick look at 1977's The Sentinel, which I guess technically you guys could potentially argue, well, that's not really a demonic or a possession film, but it does touch on themes, which to me makes it still very much worthwhile as far as taking a look and basically investigating. So in this film, basically, we follow a young model slash TV commercial actress. She, for some odd reason, wants to get her own apartment, even though her boyfriend says that she doesn't have to. But she finds her own place, and everybody in the apartment building is just really, really odd. They're very friendly, but they're odd. And it's hard not to mention the one scene with the two women. I'm sure everyone, every time this film is reviewed, always rushes to mention this one particular scene. So let's just go ahead and get this out of the way, because if you guys are familiar with the film, I'm pretty sure you already are wondering what my thoughts on that scene are. So let's just get it out of the way. So obviously she wanders into the apartment of two women. Everyone refers to this as the lesbian scene, even though technically there is no actual girl-on-girl action. So let's just throw that out of the window. But there is a moment of over-the-clothing leotard in hand masturbation. So, there's definitely some very enthusiastic gyrating and gesturing going on here, which definitely makes it for a very humorous scene, because obviously the young woman is left alone in the room with the obviously the other woman's counterpart, and basically in woman fashion, metaphorically speaking, she basically just whips it out. And what makes it so funny is because the fact that it's just so awkward. She's basically just sitting there forced to witness this woman. She's trying to be polite. She doesn't want to be rude. She just wanted to introduce herself to her neighbors downstairs because she's new in the building. Obviously in this day and age, I don't think anybody would even bother to introduce themselves to their neighbors. Everyone's just very stay to myself, go about your own business, leave me the hell alone. But she extends this gesture of friendship or friendliness, what have you, and it's basically returned to her. Maybe not in the way she would have hoped, but she definitely gets an invitation to be a friend. So it's just funny, the fact, because this scene does, or at least that moment, it feels like it goes on for at least 3 to 5 minutes, even though it's, just roughly just a few seconds. But you've got the facial expressions, you've got the sounds, you've got, once again, as I have said, the gyrating or the undulations of the body, in conjunction with the hand gesturing, the self-pleasuring. She's, getting off on her new neighbor, literally, and in front of her, masturbating to the new young woman who has introduced herself to her recently. So that's a thing. But yeah, it's hard not to eventually at some point just giggle during that scene, because like I said, it's just so awkward. Especially if you put yourself in the character's position, like, what would I do if I were in this situation? How the hell do I get out of this? And she just sits there just very prim and proper. You can tell she's not comfortable, and it's just so goddamn funny. It is. Eventually the other woman just comes back and she's like, well, good day, sirs, and she just goes off on her way. And obviously the other woman, well, it's not polite to just eat and run. She's like, well, I drank, I just had some tea, whatever. But yeah, it's just a freaking hilarious scene. It's just hard not to burst into a fit of giggles when watching that nonsense. We later do get a hint of why this potentially wasn't being done. Obviously there's the temptation aspect going on here. Obviously it's not a seduction in the traditional sense. They weren't necessarily interested in her carnally. But it's basically, what would you say, they're trying to distort her persona and character, because throughout the course of the film, via her boyfriend who takes up his own investigation, we discover that this apartment building is basically the door to hell. So obviously the priest who is up at the tip top of the apartment building is basically the guardian. He must watch over this doorway or this path to ensure that nothing comes to pass. And what of all these kooky people in this apartment building? Well, very much to her dismay, the young woman who has recently moved in discovers that she is basically alone in this building. It is just she and the priest. Everyone that she had mentioned prior are murderers, serial killers, if you will, who died years, even centuries prior. So she's basically just, if you will, living with ghosts. Obviously, at some point in time, the boyfriend, because he comes to realize that his girlfriend, basically, she is to become Sister Teresa. How this comes to pass is, it's successorship, basically. The priest at the very top, at some point in time, will die. And someone has to be there to take his place, hence the new young lady who has been moved into the building very recently. So essentially, when a member of the cloth disappears, a regular person, a normie, if you will, also disappears the following day and reappears the next as a member, depending on their gender, apparently. As either a priest or a nun, and they basically just become the next guardian. But it's very much the investigation aspect of this that makes it so interesting. And as I've said, the film is just full of all of these kooky characters. I love the oldness of the building as well, especially because you really don't see old buildings like that anymore, and it's just so classic and it's just so beautiful, and you really don't see things like that anymore, very rarely. And if you do manage to find a working building like that, you do run across issues quite regularly, because piping then at the time was not, obviously it's not the same as it is now. It's also potentially very high priced, but it's beautiful to just be able to look at this place, you know. I guess you could say just the whole throwback aspect of it. But once again, I said, you know, the whole building is just full of all of these kooky characters, and just the whole investigational aspect, like what's really going on here, you know, as all of these trials that you go through with the lead character, as we discover what in the world is really going on here. Then we get, you know, the whole, you know, they blow the whole lid off the thing, and we see what happens. Obviously, Mr. Boyfriend, at some point in time, I guess thinking that he was helping his lady, even though he basically just turned himself into an absolute idiot, murders the priest. Obviously, someone dispatches the murderous boyfriend, so he is now condemned to live in this building for the rest of his life as well, because obviously you can't commit, I guess you could say, one of the deadly sins over the gate or the doorway to hell, because now you are condemned to live there forever. So essentially, all of these peoples inhabiting this building are not really ghosts, but more quote-unquote devils. And they are there to entice and to tempt her and lead her away from the path that will be hers, that should be hers. They want her to essentially commit suicide. And that's a common thread among every single person who has ever taken the post of the Sentinel, the guardian of the doorway to hell. Is basically, they are suicide prone. They deal with numerous issues in their past. So obviously she has attempted to commit suicide twice. They want her to go for lucky number 3. She almost does. And of course, if you've ever seen an alternate version of the poster or any promotional material for the film, you obviously know that Sister Teresa really pulls through here, you know? She's just a trooper. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting film. The first time I saw it, I thought it was just so damn boring. Of course, I happened to be dealing with insomnia at the time, and whenever I have sleeping issues, I just hate movies in general. It doesn't matter how great the film is, but you know, you're looking for something to watch. You're looking for something to kill time, because time is all you have in those moments, unfortunately. So the first time I saw the movie, I thought it was boring. I thought, oh, this is horrible. This is terrible. I cannot stand this. But I watched it. You know, obviously years later, when it was released by Scream Factory, I picked up a copy. Obviously, I really don't hate the movie. I mean, I think it's a very well-told story. It has great character development. You do have very interesting situations and scenarios. If you've never seen or heard of this, I very highly recommend that you check it out, especially if you like older film, if you're into like 70s, not necessarily horror film in general, but I mean, if you're like a 70s enthusiast, you know, definitely I do feel that you would appreciate and enjoy this film. But that is all I have for you guys today, and I will talk to you later.